This show brought to you by Mounds. Mounds, the Nick Tangeman of candy bars.
Well, Mounds, no chocolate.
From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. Now that the Olympics are over, I feel like we can finally have this discussion. Do you feel like the Russians really learned their lesson? And now, broadcasting from the churn, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for
What are you
some Pod
talking about,
Therapy.
man? The Russians weren't there. There was only that, what was it called? Russian Olympic Committee? Yeah. Don't get those confused, man.
Right.
I mean, there's America, and then there's North America. You know, there's a continent, and there's a country.
No, there's not.
What?
It's the United States of America.
Fine.
Yeah.
The
country's not called America.
All right.
I don't know if you're...
All right.
I don't think you know where you live.
Yeah, touche. I'm not sure you're wrong.
Maybe you missed that day in school.
I missed a lot of days
I'm
in
just
school,
saying.
Tangeman.
I'm just saying that I don't think any points were made.
Yeah.
I don't
yeah.
feel like
nobody learned a lesson
Yeah,
there.
because no one was fooled.
No.
Like, because I kind of feel like if I was Russia, I'd be like, okay, you're not going to use our name.
Yeah. You playing our national anthem when we win, though?
We can.
I don't think they did.
No, I don't think they did either.
What
I don't
they
think
do?
they got the anthem. They didn't, and they did get the flag.
What'd they do? What's new?
But like, whoa. That see now that would be punishment. They would learn their
Every
lesson.
time you win, they play Tom Jones.
Absolutely. You think that's going to ever happen again? You think they're
Never.
going to get caught doping again
Putin
after
just
that?
smashing the table. Kill them all.
That right there, I'm on board. If they
Yes.
do that, I'm on board.
Yeah, that would have done
I
it.
just kind of feel like they didn't like.
Creative solutions to big problems.
Yeah, because if I was Russia, I'd be like, all right, we'll keep doping because
I'm
this
on
isn't
the
so
other
bad.
side of this. I think doping should be mandatory. Okay, I get it. They're all like the peak physical health of our species, and they can do special things and run fast. Great. Now make them go even faster. just hook them up to the IV all the way, wheel them out there onto the track, and just cut them loose. I want to see these dudes burn rubber. I want to see them throw the javelin out of the building. That's what I want to see. What do I care? The purity of the sport? I don't care. I think we've already established I have a very low opinion of the Olympics. So,
At Sin City Shrink on Twitter. Where you can find him.
oh, the Olympics is done. So now our peace and harmony around the world is done too. Where's the next one going? Paris? Is that where they're going? France or something like
Well,
that?
the next one will be a
Sounds
Winter
right.
Olympics, and I guess it'll be next
Yeah.
year
Oh, wow.
in theory.
Yeah, because this was the
it's usually
quote
even
unquote
years.
2020
Yeah,
Olympics, right? Is it every 4 years or every 2?
it's every 4 years, but like the Winter Olympics are every 4 years, and the Summer Olympics are every 4 years. So you get
Oh.
an Olympics every 2 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're not going to have Winter Olympics for much longer, man. The climate change. They'll run out of snow.
Until next time, this has been Pod Therapy for Jim Jobin and Nick Tangeman.
Thank you for joining us.
I see Beijing 2022. Beijing? Didn't they just
Good
have?
night, everybody.
They just had the Summer Olympics.
Oh, bro,
not too long
Beijing was a
ago.
minute ago. China already got theirs.
Yeah, but it says Beijing 2022.
Where
Winter
was the
Olympics.
first one? Was it not Beijing last time?
That
I
was
think
the
it's-
Summer Olympics, yeah.
They can't
don't-
just get two.
Beijing, yeah.
I don't know. I
Oh,
guess
what
so.
What is this? What is this? You're going to put an Olympics where the pandemic started?
Oh, let's not go there.
All right. Good night, everybody. Man, we've closed the show down twice in the first 5 minutes.
See, now we said in the pre-show, he said something that was really outrageous. I said, we'll forget about it.
Yeah,
I already did.
yeah. That's true.
I've already forgotten about it.
That's right. Got away with another one. As long as you say it behind the paywall, nobody's going to find out. Patreon.com/therapy.
Yeah.
First letter
From the
is
4th to the 20th of February, 2022.
they're
in
going back
Beijing.
to Beijing?
Yeah.
Gosh, man, I just don't know about that.
I mean, that has to, because they schedule the Olympics years and years out.
But they just did China.
So, I mean, they must have
What do you mean they
done
just
like,
did China?
How long do
because
you
the
think
Summer
the China
Olympics
one was?
weren't that long ago in China.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what
No,
I'm
no,
saying.
no. I was just confirming that you knew that Japan wasn't in China. I'm just saying.
Well, it's a suburb, Nick. You know, not in.
You've had a history in the last couple episodes.
Henderson's not in Las Vegas. You know, they're adjacent.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I know my geography. I think we've
Oh,
established.
I don't think.
I think the people of Suriname would beg to differ. Wait, did I get that one wrong? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I
you
did.
did get it wrong.
Oh, yeah, Jacob and I both thought it was Vietnam, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, it turned out to be South America.
Yeah.
I think I'll stick to not geography things. Hey, guys, writing again, because you guys are my favorite gang. This one might be a long one. Feel free to edit any irrelevant details. Cut them out of the show. Nope.
Yeah, thanks for writing.
Great letter. Let me tell you what you should do. I started seeing my university therapist a while back because I wanted to work on some things, but some time ago I found out that they broke confidentiality and shared intimate details of my life with their peers.
Done.
Because the information
I'll keep
wasn't
listening.
shared, because the information was not shared with any students, nothing came of my complaint. In fact, I got penalized for filing a, quote, baseless complaint. Ever since I've been back, I've been harassed by other members of the university because of my reporting the therapist and the private details of my life that they are now privy to. Sometimes it can get pretty extreme. This ordeal has also fed into some concerning suicidal ideation. I know this might be something that would require sustained support. I haven't let this color my perception of all therapists. I know there are just as many good ones as bad, if not more. But at this moment in time, I can't find it in me to trust anyone. I also realize that this isn't permanent, and there will be a time when I can get out. But that's still a little ways away. Any advice on practicing mindfulness and accepting harm would be lovely. Love the show. Anonymous. P.S. Sorry for getting all heavy on you guys. Lots of love. Yeah, you can get heavy on us. This is an interesting one.
Yeah. So obviously, there's a lot of information here that we're not privy to yet.
Yeah.
As far as what exactly the breach and confidentiality was.
Yeah.
So to kind of explain confidentiality within an organization, right? So let's say,
Yep, you
let's
saw it
say-
too. That's
yep.
exactly where I was going to go.
So
go
let's
ahead,
say-
Tangeman, set them straight.
let's say Jim and I are working together in our
Colleagues,
clinic.
lovers, you know, we don't need titles.
So what can be shared between Jim and I for, let's say, a patient I'm working with?
Right.
Can I share information with Jim?
Right.
If we are in the same umbrella, the same organization, right, that is not actually breaking confidentiality if I talk to Jim. But here's the kicker. Here's the thing. It's got to be something relevant to the treatment of the client.
Right. We shouldn't be gossiping.
Right. Exactly. So I'm not exactly sure
what's
if that's
something that
what
would-
happened
what-
here.
Give
But-
us something that would be relevant.
Okay, so for example, if I'm working with a client and I'm a substance abuse guy and I've got a client that's talking about some serious anxiety stuff, and something they said kind of sparked a curiosity in me. And so I go to Jim and I say, Jim, you're kind of more of an expert in anxiety disorders. This is what I'm hearing, so and so. Tell me,
Okay.
Should this be a concern? Is this something? So it's more of a consultation.
I was about to say,
right?
A consultation is appropriate and acceptable,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you don't necessarily need that patient's permission
No.
as long as the person you're going to is within your organization
Yes.
that they are getting their therapy from.
Yes, because nothing has left.
Right.
No information
the
has
building.
left the organization.
Yeah, and to be clear, when Jacob says you don't need the patient's permission, well, I'd correct that by saying this. We have it.
You already okay. You
We
don't
already
need, you don't
have
need
it.
additional permission.
Yeah, when you sign, so like I am an agency now. I'm a group practice. I have another therapist, and when she sees patients, they sign documents that say Jobin and Associates at the top.
Okay.
And it's understood. I will know about those cases. Now, I don't go into her notes just as a looky-loo and just, go looking for whatever the hell I want to look at.
And there
But
might
I'm her
be-
supervisor.
There
so
might
I
be
do
things
check
about the
everything.
cases that you don't know.
Yeah, I'm not going with, like with a fine-tooth comb. But we do supervision every week. And so I say, take me through your cases. That doesn't mean I need to hear about every one, but I'll say, tell me about the ones that you feel are relevant and you'd like me to hear about. And she'll say, okay, here are the hard ones, right? And so we start with those. And then, I hear her, I give her coaching, I tell her I like what you're doing here, I double check her paperwork. We're inside of a bubble, though, and whenever you do paperwork like this person, and again, we don't know the details, Ryder, and so there could be something here. But if I was your therapist at the university and I told fellow therapist Nick about your case, I wouldn't even need to prove that I needed to. I mean,
Right.
Nick wouldn't listen to me unless I needed to. As a rule, he doesn't listen to me unless he has to. So if we're sitting at staffing,
It's a fine rule.
yeah, it's a fine rule. Even now, he doesn't go back and listen to pod therapy.
There are headphones on Nick's head that are forcing him to listen to Jim right now.
I have to bite my fucking voice into this man's face. No, but that's the deal. Like, we're gonna have a staff meeting every week and go through the cases, right? And so if this person is one of my caseload, you may incidentally, as a peer, because that's the operative word the writer says, that my peers may hear about that. But the question is, who are the peers? If they're out of the Department of Counseling, no, that nobody should be hearing about that. So that's a fine question.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
even if because I always thought about this too, like even if there was a signed release of information between if Jim's organization and my organization are
Right.
separate, and my patient signs of release of
ROI,
information
yeah.
to communicate with Jim or somebody from Jim's organization,
Yeah.
it still has to be relevant clinical information. Like I can't talk to my friend who works at Jim's office
No.
as a janitor
Right.
about a patient.
You can
right?
only
I
talk
can-
to the
it's-
right people.
Exactly.
They have to still be clinical staff.
Exactly.
And now, what about
Unless
so
it's a rehab.
So the three of us are in an organization together, and Nick sees a patient, and Nick comes to Jim and I and tells Jim and I about this patient and about the case.
Yeah.
And then Jim, as he's walking past the patient in the hallway, goes, "What's up, psycho?
Right.
I hear you're into
Yeah.
spreading your feces on
Yeah.
horses.
Right.
You know, like
without a permit.
right."
You monster.
Because it sounds like there might be a little bit of that going on in this case as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's
that's
the next
to me
thing
the
we
big
need to get
breach.
to.
Yes,
is
go on.
because obviously if this information got back to you.
By the way, if I nailed exactly what you were talking about with your therapist just now,
Yeah.
that's my bad.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't.
We're supposed to believe that's just a coincidence, Jacob.
Jacob's moonlighting on university
Yeah.
campuses.
Yeah. Pretty
guy gets
specific
everywhere.
information there, bud.
DJing at strip clubs. This guy's everywhere.
So if this comes back to you, writer, that's what I want to know.
Yeah,
How
right.
did this come back? Because if it came back to you, there's obviously some really sloppy communication going on
Yes.
right away, which would be concerning.
Yeah. Because you should never even hear about it, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
when Nick and I ran a rehab,
That
we
seems
have
best case unprofessional.
Yeah,
Yes.
we were inside of a very tight bubble of an institution of healthcare, right? There was no question that we were talking about every single person there. They knew that. And we'd have 30 people there. But if I was an individual therapist and I was told something, I would still be reluctant to share much of those details with the rest of the staff, right?
Right.
So I look at this and I think poor staffing, poor supervision.
Yeah.
Like, where's the supervisor on this to say, hey, don't sit here and be, chatty Cathy about this entire file. Like,
Yeah.
as the key staff, tell us the basics.
And is there a legal or ethical component to that? Or is that just shitty?
It's bad form. And I think you would get, if you pulled that shit,
It's definitely shitty.
if you pulled that shit with Nick or I, we would reprimand you. Not probably in front of everybody. We'd probably cut you off mid-sentence and say, I think I've got the gist. Give me the summary of the case, no details. What's the diagnosis? XYZ. What's your plan? Like, we're mostly asking you questions. We're not being nosy about who the patient is. We're asking,
Yeah.
what are you going to do as a therapist?
This was something I used to run into quite a bit at the not necessarily the rehab we worked at, but one that I've worked at where
With
I would
me?
have a lot of staff. Yes.
Oh, okay.
But you
So
weren't.
that's one of the
One
3
of
out
the-
of 4 that
yeah.
you've worked.
It doesn't matter. Anyway,
been
the
everywhere,
point
man.
is, the
Nick
point,
was trying to be vague.
yeah.
We've worked everywhere. We keep getting fired.
No, we
Was this
don't
the
keep
McDonald's?
getting fired. We've been fired once.
Oh, that's true. Sorry. Let the record show.
Uh,
I've been canned once.
but I used to. It got a little carried away with some of our team, some of our support staff, the folks that were on
Oh,
the
the
floor on a
techs,
daily
man.
basis.
Yeah,
And I
they
get that
chatty.
they would they would need to release some pressure, blow off some steam,
Sure.
but they would start to get it turned from clinically useful information to gossiping very quickly.
Yeah, too
Okay.
much.
And then so you always had to be present and aware of that and just kind of go, okay, let's reel it back in.
Yeah.
Let's get back to what's clinically relevant. What's the
Yeah.
shareable information that we need to do our jobs better?
Yes.
And not just let's talk shit about people.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's where clinical staff, they want to be short, succinct, but yes, inside of the same bubble, it is very likely, writer, that they will discuss your case. Now, at the end of the day, whatever, listen, we're here to be your friend and tell you from our industry, here's what we know, right? But at the end of the day, you got harmed. Well, that's a big deal. And the response to a patient getting harmed is not, this was a baseless accusation.
Right.
Well, what? What are you doing, you idiots?
But that's also
Don't talk
going
to the
through the,
patient.
like my guess is, and I don't think this is addressed specifically in the letter. My guess is that's the university saying that, and not this therapy department saying that.
Yeah, God, this
Because
thing seems to have gotten
my
way out of
assumption
control.
is the complaint went to the university and not to a therapy supervising body.
Right.
Probably. And the other part to that too then is if it goes to the university, what they're going to investigate is, did a breach in confidentiality occur?
Right.
In which case, in this case, it sounds like no,
Sounds
it
like
didn't.
no. Yeah.
Sounds like there are some serious ethical issues,
Right.
but the university is not going to care about that.
Right.
I mean, they may care, but to a much smaller degree. They're first and foremost, can we get sued?
Right.
Is it a confidentiality breach?
a really
And
good
they say
question.
no, it's not. So that's probably where.
But
that
now
came
then,
from.
as soon as, because the second part of that, the causing harm of that seems like something they could get sued for.
It's pretty slippery. I mean,
Is it? Okay.
It
yeah,
may
when,
be
when
hard
it
to
comes to
prove.
healthcare, you can't, because like you could, I mean, if that were the case, every doctor who's ever got less than 5-star reviews caused some kind of harm and gave bad customer service or something, and they would be.
But there's a definite action here.
there's a high threshold.
If someone is walking down the hall
Mm-hmm.
and says, "Hey, crazy, I hear you like smearing your own shit on horses."
Yeah, without a permit,
Right.
frowned upon in the state of Nevada.
You know, that's outside of a session, obviously.
Right.
It's not the person that you were in a session with.
Right.
Secondarily, and I mean that seems like
Internal reprimand, not malpractice.
Okay.
There is a pretty high legal threshold to get
Great.
to quantifiable harm.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I don't think legally anything would happen. Worst
As the
case
supervisor,
scenario,
I'm putting my shoe in somebody's rectum.
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's going to be a paper trail demonstrating that I did that.
Right. Or the next step up from that would be that person's board.
Oh, going to the BOE? Yeah.
Yeah, whoever the board is for that person's license.
Which would still be pretty high as a threshold. But if you were
It would
really
be.
pissed, you could. You know?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that you're probably mostly reporting the clinic on this one. The thing writer, anyway, I know we're getting into the weeds, but that's part of what we do on the show.
No, I like it.
The thing that the writer says that I think we have to zoom in on, and this is, writer, where I kind of see exactly where you're standing in all this. Because, I mean, listen, you're John Q. Public. You're the patient, right? If this stuff wasn't sat down and explained to you in a very friendly way, that's a huge, unfortunate reaction, right? I want the patient in this case to be sat down for us to, and we've had that talk. We've had that talk where we've had patients who don't come in and feel like they know the ins and outs of HIPAA, and they're like, hey, and that used to be a problem because a technician in some of our lines of work, they might overhear things clinicians say, and they're not as tight-lipped about, ethical codes, nor do they have any ethical codes they have to answer to. And sometimes they would get out and talk to another patient about John's business.
Yeah.
Now Susie knows.
Yeah.
And then Susie and John are smoking in the back, and Susie goes, yeah, I heard that the staff said this about you. And it's like, wow, that was super private.
Yeah.
And there is a violation that's occurring there.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it becomes a real problem, even though we're all inside. And what's interesting is other patients inside of an inpatient institution can also become aware of your healthcare details through the sharing of group or whatever. So technically that's still inside of the bubble, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to turn into lawsuit, but it's going to turn into bad form and bad clinical practice. At the end of the day, this clinic lost trust with their patient.
Yeah.
And the patient saying, I was so horrified, so humiliated, so discarded, I started struggling with suicidal ideation because my helpers felt like they were turning against me and nobody was comforting me or consoling me or caring about my well-being anymore.
All
That's
because I didn't have a permit.
Huge failure. Yeah. Well, the feces thing is serious. But yeah,
It's
that's
the only
a huge
thing
failure.
Nevada takes seriously.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, gamble, go for it. Marijuana, we look the other way. But if you smear poo on the horses,
You better have a permit.
we don't have no poo ponies here in Las Vegas. We keep it classy. But no, that's the part that writer, my heart breaks for you,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, We want people to go to their university staff to get help, and the fact that this got ugly and it wasn't resolved, they didn't sit you down, they didn't adequately explain it to your satisfaction, which is strike number one in my opinion.
Yeah.
This should have never turned into a complaint.
Well, I mean, this is and going to university healthcare services is something that we have advocated for on this show in the past.
Do it.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we want you to do that. We want people to be able to do that. And so the fact that you went and did this and
You did it right.
and got hurt by it is terrible.
Yeah, but you were still doing the right thing. So Nick, when he's talking, the writer who doesn't identify any pronouns, but when the writer says, "Listen, I feel burned by this," and the writer says, "Guys, don't worry. I'm not overreacting and saying everybody's bad. In fact, I'm sure there's as many good ones as bad ones," which kind of hurt my feelings to hear.
No, that's good.
50-50 sounds about the
I'll
studio
take
where we're
50-50.
But
For
this
a person who went through this
50%
situation.
of the therapists in the studio were
this is
shit.
an open-minded. This is a very open-minded person.
Yeah.
The fact that they're not saying "fuck all you people."
Yeah, that's
Yes,
true. That's
exactly.
true. We'll give you credit.
Exactly.
But okay, mindfulness for when you feel burned. How do you right size what's happened? You don't focus on it, and you pivot back to the right thing.
I think you burn it down.
Mm,
By it, I mean the university.
yep. Just a quick side note: Jacob's opinions do not represent myself or my colleague Nick. Board of Examiners, please be advised.
His opinions do represent me a lot of the time.
That's fine.
actually.
Yep, that's the drop. That's
not
the drop.
in this one.
That's fine. You
not
take
in
it.
this one, but
You take it. That's too hot for me.
So here's the thing. I think I'm glad. I'm so relieved that you're still open-minded to the process.
That's
Oh yeah.
And I think you just got to get in there, try again. And I don't want to say use a little faith because I don't really like faith. I like
you
the
gotta
idea
have faith. The faith.
of
The faith. You
of,
gotta have the faith. The faith.
the assumption that there are more good people than bad. How about that?
Yes. And I think you're going to have better experiences. You're going to have more experiences that are positive than you will negative.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. And I think, this may cause you to be a little bit guarded next time with the next therapist, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily bad. I think you just kind of read your therapist and you build trust with them. You build rapport with them over time.
And let them know this.
Absolutely tell your next therapist about this.
Yes.
First
Yes.
day. This is a day one conversation to have. I think this is a fine day one conversation to have.
Yep. Because they will ask, "Have you seen a therapist before?" I have.
As a matter of fact,
And here's how it went.
I had a
Yeah.
difficult experience with
Yeah.
that. And here's how I felt. And you know what? I'm glad you listened to the show because they'll probably reiterate some of what we did because they'll feel the need to clarify HIPAA for you. That way you and they don't have any problems. And they might say, "Hey, thank you for telling me that. Here are people in my chain of information who could hear some of the details about this stuff. Please understand we're all professionals here at this clinic and this will not become a problem for you.
Right.
We're a team." Just like when you go to your normal primary care,
Right.
the doctor will know, a nurse may know, and others who have access to that file inside of your primary care clinic could become part of the conversation.
And there's a reason why that's the case.
Right, we're better
Is-
together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if we're
No,
able
you
to
want a team of people
share-
helping.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
you want that. And you want that team of people to not be shitty.
Yeah.
And it turns out, unfortunately, this team was a little shitty.
They didn't handle it right. At the end of the day, even if
I
they
think
did
shitty's the
nothing,
right word.
they can
I
go
think
with
so.
that.
Yeah.
Even if they did nothing legally wrong, you mismanaged the patient's expectations.
Yeah.
You mismanaged the repair job on reassembling therapeutic rapport, and this person ended up leaving treatment or discontinuing
Yeah.
and getting worse.
Yeah.
That's a failure of the
Oh, yeah.
clinic. You're supposed to be behavioral health experts.
It doesn't
Act
have
like
to
it.
be. It doesn't have to be legal malfeasance
No.
Yes.
for it to be
Bad
wrong.
care. It's a fail. It's
Yeah.
just a solid fail.
Yeah. They
So,
missed some good opportunities, I think.
Yes.
Number one, you screwed up by breaching, trust.
Sure.
And then number two, by not repairing it, like you said.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, that's a great opportunity right there to rebuild rapport, rebuild a relationship.
Yeah.
So they missed it twice.
And then you hose
Sounds
down
like-
the horse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Well, and overarching,
that horse.
Clean up the
like
horse.
overarching, it sounds like you left in a worse way than you were when you went in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We don't want to see that.
That's bad.
The opposite of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you didn't give up, friend. And listen, regroup, come back to it. And you could even probably go back to that same clinic. I don't think they're going to deny you. I think they're going to assign you a different person, and you're going to have a very careful conversation about what information you can share. But if you didn't feel safe going back to them, I would also understand. Because it sounds like there's been some weird blowout where other people now know about your business.
Right.
That's a mess.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that
I
happens.
wouldn't go back to the same clinic.
No, yeah, probably go somewhere else.
I don't think it sounds like if it were me, I wouldn't trust the other people at that clinic, even if it was a different group.
Do you think they're
And
students?
if you don't, well, that's the other thing
Don't know,
too.
yeah.
Like, I was kind of thinking that too. Like, do you think this is going to be more common in a university type setting if we're talking about students? Because this,
Yeah.
the not to say that, and again, I hate bringing this up because I don't want to send the message that university clinics are not good enough or
That's a
they're
drop.
they're at
You
a
can save
lower that they're at a lower
Oh,
standard.
I got it.
Yeah.
They're not. It's just that sometimes they rely on, students, people who are new to the field
Yeah.
that maybe aren't quite as caught up in this particular aspect as
And
they
I can
should be.
see where they seem
And that
like your
doesn't
peers too.
exactly, and
Yeah.
that doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make it acceptable. They need to the standard is still there. They have to meet that standard,
Right.
regardless.
Right. Good question, Ryder. And listen, we're glad to hear that at the end of the day, you're going to circle back and do the next right thing. That's what we require of you, okay? You're going to bump into some tough healthcare providers that don't always get the job done. Your job is to regroup and go to the next stop, okay?
Yeah, we're sorry that happened to you. It's not a reason to stop working on yourself.
That's right.
Them being shitty is on them. You taking care of yourself, that's your problem.
Stop rubbing feces on the horses. We're going to take a quick
just get a
Without
permit.
a
Just get a
permit.
permit.
Get a permit.
permit.
God, it's like $10. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are discussing how to build an understanding relationship through the resentment of one's father.
Question mark?
Nailed it. I'm Ron Burgundy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Judy Schneider, Mason Miller, and Leanne Kassab. Would
Yeah.
you like to sponsor the show and become a therapy producer? Go to
not?
patreon.com/therapy. Our theme in honor of our therapy producers is 90s trivia.
Ooh.
It's back.
I like this.
What was the federal minimum wage in
Oh,
1995? Was it A, $3.80?
One buffalo nickel.
B, $4.25?
What?
C, $4.75, or D, $5.15.
Oh, man.
What year?
You're a dick.
1995.
Okay.
$3, $4, $4, or $5.
If you'd like to join the therapy producers and make the show possible, go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
19 what?
1995.
Oh my God.
It was either
Toy Story
$3.80,
came out that year.
$4.25, $4.75, or $5.15.
I'll let you go first. It's all irrelevant to me. This is like Price is Right.
I'm going 515.
Going with the highball.
I'll go with the highest.
You're probably right, but there's two fours, so
There are two fours.
statistically that would usually be the one. I'll go with the higher of the two fours.
$4.75.
I'll take it.
Okay.
You're both wrong. It
Oh.
was $4.25,
Ah,
which was effective on April 1st, 1991.
1995.
When did it
in
go into the fives?
90, not until 97.
Wow.
Oh,
Was when
well-
it went to 5.15.
I knew it was somewhere in the mid 90s. It was 5 something.
Yep, I remember that because that's when I started working at McDonald's.
Yeah.
So I remember that 5.15 an hour.
Sweet cash.
Yeah, that was
$5.
a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember taking a $20 bill and filling up my gas tank.
I was just talking to Laura about
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Because gas in Las Vegas just hit $4.
Yeah.
And I told her, I was like, and I felt so old saying this.
Back
was like,
in my day, Laura.
I remember.
I remember gas wasn't as
remember.
expensive.
I remember when gas hit
And music
$1.
wasn't as loud.
Gas hit $1. I remember when that happened.
A buck?
Yep, when gas hit
That's
$1.
probably true. Yeah.
So my only non-entertainment job I ever had was working for tech support for a school board.
Oh.
And I would work. I worked for a summer for tech support for a school board. This would be right around 95. Freshman year of high school, out of between freshman and sophomore year of high school, and we got paid. I think we got paid minimum wage,
Okay.
but
Solid 4 bones.
it might have been $5.
Ooh.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't much.
They
We-
inflated it.
Yeah, we got paid $4 or $5 an hour, so whatever it was, and because there were the real tech support guys, and then there was us, like the summer help guys.
Yeah.
And really, what we did was we went into the schools, and back then schools had computer labs,
Oh yeah.
and these computers were not
Oregon
anything
Trail.
like what we think of as computers now.
No.
They were
Yeah.
word processors with Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we would open them up and with air compressors blow the dust out of them.
Oh,
And that was
okay.
our main job for
Oh.
the summer.
Okay.
And then we started running network cabling, because this is when like the internet was a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We started running some network cabling in some of these schools. But anyway,
Okay.
one of the other summer guys, because we would turn our time, and it was handwritten time cards and all this kind of stuff. And one of the other summer guys, he had 2 ways in his mind that he was going to make extra money at this thing.
I remember you
Lord.
told this story on ICS.
One
ahead.
was he wanted to drive his vehicle everywhere. We would drive our personal vehicles out to all the schools, and you got paid per mile
Okay.
of driving.
So you make a
And
little
there wasn't any of like you keeping up with the mileage.
Yeah.
You'd put in the school that you drove out to, and there was a round trip saved for that school, so you didn't get to
Yeah.
fudge that at all. The other thing was we would start work. I don't remember. We would either start work at 8 or 9 in the morning, and on this guy's time card one week, it showed that he was in for like 10 more hours
Oh my god.
than anyone else, including the regular full-time guys. But we were all working the same hours. And so he was in for an extra 2 hours every day that week. And the boss, with all of us in the office, the boss was like, what the fuck? What's going on with this?
Yeah.
And he goes, I think it was a 9 o'clock start time. And so he goes, well, I was in at 7 every day this week. The boss like, what are you talking about? You were in at 7? This is another like 15 or 16-year-old
Yeah.
kid like me. He goes, what do you mean you were in at 7 every day this week? He goes, well, I've been here at 7 every day this week. He goes, well, the office wasn't open at 7, and also you weren't scheduled to work at 7. So that doesn't matter. You don't get to just work whatever hours you want to.
You showed
But
up.
also, no one was here, and you can't get into the building.
But I was here.
What were you doing? And he turns out he was driving to work at 7 a.m. And he was genuinely getting there at 7 a.m. and sleeping in his car
Oh my
for
god.
2 hours until the office opened.
And he's writing it on the clock in.
And he's clocking that. He's clocking that time.
That's working
He's
smart.
like, I can make an extra $10 a day.
He broke the system. Guy figured it out.
We
Get
all
that
had a really
sweet
good laugh
$8.
about that.
That'll get you an extra $10. That's nothing to sneeze at.
An extra
man.
$50 a week.
That's not a bad gig.
Mid-90s, $50.
He must have been thinking, why has no one else thought of this?
Oh, he thought
Lazy
everybody else were
bastards.
fucking jokes.
I just eat my
He was like-
cereal on the drive there. It's so easy.
You just show up when you're told.
He's like,
Oh.
I'm not even losing sleep.
Oh my
I'm showing up
gosh.
and going back to sleep.
Yeah, I may as well just sleep in this parking lot one night and just get tons of overtime.
Yeah.
Wow. That is Louisiana public education right there at its finest.
I'd say that's a 15-year-old.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a 15-year-old.
Not wrong. I love it. All right, so now we know what the minimum wage in 1995 was. Glad we watched this show.
415?
Yeah, I
There
think
you
so.
go.
Is that what
Yep.
it said? Sounds right.
How do I build understanding
425.
instead of resentment with my father? I am a 26-year-old male, currently unemployed and living at home with my parents. Over the last decade or so, I've been in and out of therapy. I've also taken SSRI medications for depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem, low motivation, and suicidal ideation. I've managed to graduate from college, UCSC, with a psychology degree. I found it interesting, but wasn't sure what to do with it career-wise. Since I graduated in 2018, I worked at an adolescent rehab facility as a behavioral technician for about a year. Quit due to stress becoming unmanageable, then moved back home to work as an apartment leasing specialist, which I also ended up leaving due to stress earlier this year. While I know that is fairly common for people to move back in with their family after school, I couldn't help shake the feeling of disappointment and failure, and the feeling that I was moving backwards in my life. My father was initially supportive of me moving back home, and the plan was for me to regroup and reorient toward a career, instead of just a job. He had at times mentioned that the people who I was working with were operating at the bottom level of the metaphorical career ladder, and that I should be aiming higher. As I was struggling to keep up in these positions, it was hard not to feel even more incompetent when hearing these motivational statements from Dad. About a year ago, I realized that the brain fog, for lack of a better term, poor sleep quality, fatigue, and motivation issues were getting worse, and begun to see doctors to try to figure it out. After seeing a few specialists, I was able to rule out any physical abnormalities in my brain and got diagnosed and begun treatment for obstructive sleep apnea, as well as receiving a adult ADHD diagnosis to see if any medications could help. Unfortunately, I still haven't had any luck in improving, and I'm still struggling to keep up to this day. My father has always been somewhat dismissive of these issues when I bring them up, saying things like, "Well, have you showered yet? Have you gone outside yet? Are you even trying?" When I bring up the exhaustion, or telling me that, quote, everyone has issues forgetting these things from time to time. When I told him I was having trouble focusing at work. Recently, he told me that he understands what I'm going through because a character on the TV show he's watching has depression. Of course, I wanted to ask if he's seen Harry Potter and if that could explain what it's like to be a wizard. I can't shake the feeling that
could.
He might. It's closer than
I don't know that it doesn't.
Closer than NCIS. I can't shake the feeling that he thinks of me as a disappointment, as lazy or useless, and it's been getting worse. Lately, he's been putting increasing pressure on me to make decisions of what comes next, what career I'm going to go into, and how I am going to move forward. I objectively know that he means well and just wants to see me succeed. These questions have been causing a significant amount of stress and anxiety for me. As much as I want to move out of the house and move on with my life, I feel as though I need to get my mental health and cognitive issues in check before I can make a decision about a career. As things are now, I don't think I'll be able to keep up in a job or any further education, be it psychology, grad school, or a computer programming boot camp program, my two ideal next step career paths. At the moment, I'm taking some community college classes to get an introduction to computer programming, but I don't know how I could keep up in a more fast-paced environment. About once every few months, my father will ask me these questions at a dinner table, put me on the spot, and get frustrated and disappointed when I don't have answers or a plan yet. This ends up with me getting overwhelmed, breaking down emotionally, and telling my parents about my suicidal thoughts, trying to get the point across that I need to get this mental health under control over everything else. At this point, my parents usually take a big step back and try to be consoling, but the next day, everyone acts as though nothing happened. Our interactions consist of mostly small talk, and the cycle goes on until the next breakdown. All of this is causing me to build up resentment toward my father, and every interaction we have makes me feel tense and anxious. I know that he's not intentionally trying to make me feel bad, but I don't know how to talk to him about it because the anxiety makes my mind go blank when I try. How can I address this with him and break this cycle? Am I being unreasonable to think that I need to focus on my mental health before my next career step? Any input that you have to help me get rid of this resentment and improve this relationship would be helpful. Also, after answering, would you recommend I show this episode to my father? Thank you for reading and all that you guys do for mental health. Alex.
Maybe just this segment.
I was just going to say that.
Don't show the whole episode, Alex.
So far we've talked about smearing a horse with feces
Yeah.
without a permit.
And that was just the non-Patreon part.
Yeah.
The Patreon part got real bad real fast. Real bad.
That was just Jim's mic.
Yeah,
I would-
that was literally just...
I'd hold off on
Yeah,
that.
this might not be the one. Summarize it, Alex.
Yeah, just,
Use your judgment. If you want to play like this part for your
Yeah,
dad.
hold on. Forward to now. Nick, what do you think about Alex's
All right.
question?
well, first off,
Stop rubbing feces.
nah, we ruined it. Ah,
Back
dang
to
it.
one. Back
Okay,
to one.
Back to one.
All right, so, Nick, hold on. I need one of those clacker things. All right, go.
And scene.
Scene.
Okay. We've actually had a very, very similar letter to
Yeah,
this.
a couple weeks ago.
And even before that, I think.
Okay.
I had the idea at one point that we should just put all of these together into one show
Make
and just
the-
kind of call it the
Fatherly
Father
episode,
Issues
mixtape.
show.
Yeah.
because we have been getting a lot of those about
Yeah.
like how do I deal with my dad.
Yes.
And we had one that was very similar to this.
Very
and so now the pressure's on us because we need to make sure that our feedback is similar.
We got to
Because
stick to canon. Yeah.
they're going to know that we're frauds.
Manu will.
If,
Manu
if
knows
our
exactly
feedback
what we said.
is different than what it was before. Here's the very first thing I want to start with is I think your dad's heart is in the right place.
I do too.
I think you're just missing each other in the way that you each communicate.
Yeah.
It's great that he is trying, and I like the fact that he's hearing, that he sees somebody with depression on a TV show, and reminds him of you, and it seems like he's trying to make an effort to understand that.
Sure.
But I think one of the issues that we run across, and I try to put myself in this situation too. I do feel like I have a really good understanding of mental health. But if I'm in your father's role, like I would find myself kind of slipping out of that therapist piece
Sure.
and going into protective father mode.
Right.
Because I, as a father, would feel like, shit, I'm not preparing my child for the real world. I'm
Right.
failing, you know?
Right.
And I think that's probably where he's at, that he's not saying,
Right.
and he's not communicating very well. So that's the very first thing that sticks out to me.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Because I think that there's this, and I think that I remember back when this question had first come up, or a version of this at an earlier episode, I remember Jacob had some feedback about that was saying, like, listen, this is a dad doing his job. You know, like,
Right.
that's
Can't you
part
give
of your
me
role.
credit for anything?
No,
I say something really
I liked
good,
it when you did
and
it
then you
too.
gotta-
I liked it. It's a cover of a Jacob hit. Okay, play the
It's a
hits.
solid cover.
Play the hits. There's nothing wrong with that. Take it, man. You think I made up any of the shit I've ever said on the show? I just repeat shit Jacob said in the locker room, man.
Are you kidding? It's one of the few things that I remember talking about. I was about to reiterate it myself.
It's a solid move. You jacked it away from Jacob. Now he
I
can't
guess
use
once you've been life coached, you just want to life coach
it
others.
just
That's
sticks
right.
with you, man. So yeah, definitely I want to, tip of the cap to the dad in this case, buddy, because yes, and you say it. We're reiterating what you already know. You say, listen, guys, I know my dad's in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
So this question to me becomes, all right, man. So what's going to happen here? Are we going to just delay all the moves in your life until, quote unquote, your mental health gets under control? And so I'll tell you, man, it's going to be one of those we do it as we go. We do it as we go. I have never had a patient pop into therapy and I say, step one, pause everything in your life. Don't do anything else with your career. Stop all classes. Don't propose to your girlfriend. Do nothing until we get your mental health ironed out, until you have no more symptoms.
Can't stop life.
Can't stop life. And I don't know what your optimal arrival is. I don't know what I can get you to. I don't know if we'll ever clear, quote unquote, the brain fog. I don't know if we'll ever get all symptoms of ADHD under arrest. I don't know what's going to happen. So we're going to have to do this as we go. And I respect what you're saying, where you're saying, listen, guys, yeah, that's fine. And I'm trying. I'm in community college. I'm taking some classes. Bravo. That's wonderful.
Great.
But whenever you say, I don't know, should I do the grad school thing? I don't know if I'll do any good at that. I don't know if I'm ready to make these decisions, but I'm getting this external pressure to make them. Well, yeah. And the thing is this, it's easier to steer a moving ship, and so I'd rather you get some momentum. I don't mind if we end up at the wrong place. Okay. It's part of your journey. Stagnancy is an enemy here. And you shouldn't see it as like either I could risk going in the wrong direction or stay safe in the harbor. That's a false dichotomy. It's not a real choice. Staying stagnant in the harbor is actually not good, right?
Yeah.
That's a sinking ship you're on. It doesn't go, we got to keep you moving in order to keep you above the water.
And also, you're not happy with what's going on
It's not
right
working
now.
for you.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to stick with right now.
No.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, friend, we can sit here and say things like, boy, I'd really like your family to understand this better. And I of course I do. But I think Nick's point was right. Like, I have kids. And if you were my son, even though I have a good command of mental health, and I would still say things like, I love you as my child. And I really want to be a voice that nudges you. I can't be your therapist. You need to have a therapist be your therapist. You get one dad. I got to be that guy, and I'm going to try to do the minimal amount of harm I can, but I'm the guy that wakes you up in the morning and tells you it's time for school. Even if you say my tummy hurts, I'm the guy that's supposed to push you anyway. Even if you say you don't want to go, you feel anxious today, I'm the guy that's supposed to push you. And the therapist and you can work out the details about how you're going to cope and how you're going to get through it. And yes, you're allowed to tell that therapist, man, I'm frustrated at dad. He rips the covers off me, at 7 a.m. and says it's time to go to school. And the therapist might say, gosh, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. And that's okay. That's part of your healthy process. I'm not even going to resent you for saying that about me. But I still got a dad at you. You only got one of me.
Yeah.
I got to be the guy that rips the covers off you and pushes you forward.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is I feel like we have kind of started creating this idea, this concept that if I don't have my A game, I can't play the game.
Right.
And I think
If that were the case.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I never would have done anything.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think a healthy way to approach this is to just understand that, okay, I don't have my A game today. My C plus game is going to have to hold it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I've got.
That's true.
And so,
And if you're talking with
yeah.
a therapist, I wouldn't be surprised if they say a version of that. We have all these little sayings like, don't let best get in the way of better.
Yeah.
Don't let, progress, not perfection. And that's what we want. We want incremental success. And the fact that you're going to the college classes is great. What you need to do with the therapist, if you were sitting with a therapist, what I would be saying is, I really want these two to have a really deep conversation about goal setting. And I want that to get broken down into SMART goals. By the way, go into our archives and find Nick's SMART goal episode. It's really helpful in this kind of a situation.
I think that was me.
It was probably Jacob. Nick ripped
Son
it
of
off.
a bitch. I'm not even getting
Jacob's
credit
hits
for the
album.
episodes that you weren't even on.
I believe it was Paul McCartney that did that one.
Oh man, he's great.
He is good. Paul McCartney's SMART Goals episode. But no, I would want you with a therapist talking about real practical steps you can take.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not dismissing your mental health. I also realize it's a constellation of things. You mentioned things like sometimes I do have suicidal thoughts. Sometimes I get really dark. Sometimes I feel anxious. Sometimes I feel the brain fog. Sometimes I feel stuck. Guys, I'm not making this up. And I don't want anything we've said to be dismissive of that.
Right. No.
But you talked a lot about your dad, and so we are too, right?
Yeah.
But talking about him is not dismissing you. We're just
Yeah.
trying to right size all of this.
Oh, everything that you're saying is real as far
Yes.
as dealing with mental health.
And we think a therapist is better equipped.
Yeah.
But
and-
here's the other thing that we're saying too, and something we're recognizing in your letter is you're showing strength by tackling this.
Yeah.
And we are recognizing and responding to and respecting that strength
Yes.
as well. And I think we all believe that you can function and continue to work on things and work on yourself as you work on other parts of your life as well.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the walk and
You're,
chew bubble
you're
gum.
smart enough to do all of it.
Yes.
This kind of reminds me of a golfing analogy.
Oh,
Now,
Christ.
hang with me here for a second. When you show up, when I
Who cares?
when I show up at the range,
Don't try
I'm
to do my
about ready to play a round of golf.
Yeah.
You show up, you warm up, you hit a few golf balls, and that's when you realize what kind of game that you have today.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Now is not the time to try to fix problems.
Okay.
Okay. If I'm pushing everything to the right and I tee off in 15 minutes, I'm not going to try to fix this problem.
I'm going
Okay.
to turn to the
Okay?
left.
Yeah, exactly. What I do is I say, okay, this is the game that I've got today.
I'm going to work with
This
it.
is the game I have to play.
Yeah, I agree.
I cannot change things right now. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to cancel my round either.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't have my best game, so I'm not going to play.
Right.
I'm here. I prepaid.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going home.
It's go time.
And
Yeah.
you got to make those in-game adjustments.
Yeah. And I get it, Ryder. You don't have to be thrilled about it. And I get that there's big, huge decisions and trade-offs here. If you go to computer grad school and it costs $75,000 to do this and you get in and you wash out, you're going to be pissed that you didn't, follow your instinct, so to speak, and quote unquote, clear out your mental health before you can do this. But I think it's a false concept that mental health in this way is yes or no. That like one day you're going to be restored to some like perfect symbiotic system where this is not a problem in your life anymore.
That's not going to happen.
You're probably going to have to adapt as you go. And that is a lot of the things you're already doing. You tried medicine, you're trying different solutions. I love it. And you're probably going to have to try to find your way forward as you go. And that might be lots of compromises. It might be, all right, I'm not going to reach for this program and reach for this program. It might be, I'm going to try this until I hit a wall, and then I'm going to pivot. I don't know. And you're doing that right now. I give you credit. This is exactly what I would have told this writer to do.
Yep.
I would have said, can you enroll in some community college courses? Can we start with something?
Yep.
Can we at least taste and see if you like this? And if he says yeah, or she says yes to this, or it's Alex. Well, again, it could be either one.
I think they identified it as male.
Yeah. So that's right. I think they did. So I would say this is great for me, Alex. Now let's measure how you're doing. Let's adjust as we go. Let's notice where anxiety shows up. Let's defeat depressive thoughts and self-critical thoughts. Let's set healthy expectations and boundaries for our family. Let's set goals that respect the system we live in. We can't just crash on people's couch forever. That's also not forever an option. They have boundaries too. And I'm going to be that therapist that's managing you upward, right? Which is great. That's our partnership.
And I want your dad to be there and to keep
Yeah.
on being a loving force that's pushing you a little
It
bit.
is pushing, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last sports metaphor, then I'm done.
Go on.
It's kind of like when
When you're hooking a bowling ball.
No, in basketball, when I played in high school, and one of the the thing that coach always yelled, keep your feet moving.
Okay.
You don't ever just plant your feet.
Yeah.
Always have your feet moving.
Right.
Right. And I think that's very true in life in this situation here too, like you were saying earlier. As long as you're moving, you got to keep moving. You're going to try a whole bunch of things. A lot of them are going to fail, and that's okay.
Right.
But you got to keep moving. It's when you just stop.
It's really
That's what
easy to
becomes
do
a problem.
nothing.
Yeah.
It's super easy to do nothing, and it's super easy to do nothing and blame an aspect of your personality, to blame someone else. It's
Yeah.
It doesn't
Which is
take
not empowering.
It doesn't take anything to do nothing.
Right.
But you also don't gain anything.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
want you to keep on making those gains, and we want you to keep on working on things. And part of that is going to be working on all aspects of your life, not just big quote unquote just your mental health.
Right.
Because your mental health does not exist in a vacuum. Your mental health is part of your life.
It's in the
So
ecosystem.
working on your life is working on your mental health.
Yes, I think that's true.
Great point.
And Nick talks
Nick's
a lot
going to
about
make that
the
point again in
sports.
about 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Yes,
he'll try
I
it
will.
again. And Nick likes
Writing
to talk.
it down right now.
Yeah, that's make it mental health. Nick likes to talk about the sports that he did and the metaphors he draws from that. I want to reference a sport that I did in high school, okay, which is synchronized swimming. And you don't just tread water in synchronized
If I thought
swimming.
for a second that you had actually done synchronized swimming in high school, I would let this continue.
Do you know how fucking hard that is? That's
Yes.
hard.
Oh,
It is
sure.
hard.
Which is why we don't think you've
I
done
did
it.
not do any of
I'm
that.
not downplaying synchronized swimming.
I'm not even sure I can do normal swim, like just one end of the pool to the other. I
I
couldn't
would have
play
let
colors.
you continue if I thought there
Marco
was a
Polo
chance
was dangerous.
that you had done synchronized swimming.
The point, writer Alex, is that you can't just sit there and tread water. Eventually, you will sink. And that's what I think this situation is showing you. Like, I'm proud of your ability to tread water. I'm glad you're discussing options. And now we pick a direction and we start going. I don't care if you doggy paddle in that direction. We got to get some movement.
And that can be the wrong direction.
It can be.
We have all made choices in our lives
Right.
where we start off and we decide I'm gonna do this thing.
Yep.
And then at some point you go, nope, never mind.
Yeah.
Not gonna do that thing anymore.
Let's start a podcast.
No, I'm
Pod
gonna do
Therapy
this
Book
thing.
Club.
Yeah. Let's start a podcast. 189 episodes in. Hey, we shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
Agreed.
steer it and see if we can redeem the damn thing. We're working on it, Alex. So can you. But hey, man, lean in on those relationships. And hey, if you want to send this to your dad, Alex's dad, listen.
I think
Dad
it's a
to
fine
dad.
thing to send to your dad, by the way.
Dad to dad here, man. I love that you're pushing your child as long as it's in these affirming, encouraging, motivational ways. From what Alex is writing, it sounds like whenever you hear or feel that resistance in him, or whenever you notice that he's struggling, you're trying to be responsive to that. I love it. I want to see you do more of that. It's okay to set healthy goals with your child, but remember, we want to be more than just somebody saying, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it?
Yep.
What's your plan? Sometimes we want to sit down and ask good questions and coach them through it and help them find their direction. And if you don't feel like you have that toolkit, that's okay. You didn't go to school for that toolkit, but there's helpers out there that might have that toolkit.
And for both of you, Alex talked about the cycle of that happens every few days or every few weeks, where there's kind of a little blow up and then everybody kind of backs off of
Right.
it. It's both of your jobs to break that cycle.
Yes,
It's both of your jobs to work on that.
that is true. And it could be a family therapy thing every once in a while, too.
Maybe.
And sometimes I think as a dad, that's the thing, is like knowing that it's being worked on, because sometimes nobody reports in. Nobody checks in with you and goes, hey, just so you know, I haven't forgotten about what we talked about last month. This is still on front burner for me. It goes invisible, and then you don't hear anything for a while, and you're sitting there gritting your teeth, and you're like, damn it, when are we going to figure this out? And they're like, whoa, why are you being a dick? And you're like, I'm sorry, this is not working. And like, communication is how you fix that, right? So
Right.
like when there's flowing data, then we know what everything's, who's doing what, and it doesn't feel like these things get forgotten in time.
Yeah.
So,
No.
great question, though. And, as always, stop rubbing poo on the horses, okay?
Well, get a permit.
Get a permit.
Get a permit. Just go down to Clark County. It's not hard, man. The office is always open. We're going to take a quick break. When we
That's
come
just
back.
not true. That office is just not always open.
Are we a 24-hour city or not? Like, we
Not
gotta
the-
pick
not
our
the county
side.
office.
Government employees are lazy. Should I have kids if I have a mental illness?
At Sin City Shrink.
You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Judy Schneider,
Judy.
Mason Miller, Leon Kassab. Our second 90s trivia question today is, Macaulay Culkin became the first child star ever to be paid $1 million when he acted in what film?
Oh, come on.
Oh, I've got a guess.
Is it
Jim,
A,
hold on.
Tiger?
Do we want to guess without it?
Without it? Yeah, I will. You want to do it?
Go ahead.
Richie Rich.
No.
What do you
I think
think
the
it
good
is?
son.
Oh.
All right, what are the options now?
Or it's
Options are-
My Girl.
It might be My Girl.
It might be My
we already
Girl.
got a little bit of
Options
My Girl.
are My Girl,
Ah!
Home Alone, The Good Son, or Home Alone 2.
Shit, I'm out.
Yep.
All right, dude. He did not get paid $1 million for Home Alone. He was
No.
unrealized at that
No.
point.
Was he in Home Alone 2?
Yes, and he wasn't in Home Alone 3.
Oh,
Home
okay.
Alone 2 would have been a blockbuster. That would have been guaranteed money.
I didn't think he was in Home Alone 2, which is
That
why I
was
did
the
not
Lost
guess
in
that.
New York one.
Yeah, that's one with Trump.
That was the last
Oh,
one he did.
got it.
Trump does a cameo.
Yeah.
That would have been printing money. He was such a superstar at that point, and the first one was such an icon. That one would have been a guaranteed production hit. They could have fronted that check to him without.
I'm
any
sticking
delay.
with my guess. I'm sticking with The Good Son.
Boy, I don't think that was that big of a hit, man.
It doesn't matter if it was a hit.
Yeah.
Somebody
It's what he
fronted the
got
money.
paid to do it.
All right, I'm gonna go with My Girl
Because that was going to be his like breakout. not
you're
be a
probably
child
right.
actor
Yeah,
anymore.
because it was a very serious.
Yeah, that was
role.
drama. Oh, and it was going to ruin his image because he was going to go negative. They would have had to pay him a lot of money to go off brand as a kid. You might be right. I'm going to go with My Girl because he dies in it, and I think that would have been
Spoiler!
Oh fuck! Oh
Jesus,
Jesus! Oh
Jim.
God!
God damn it!
It's on me.
There go my plans for this evening.
That's on me. So what's the answer?
I've waited 20, how many years? 30, 30
years.
I was going to watch it tonight.
Oh, also, I couldn't watch a minute more than after that kid died. After that kid died, I was like, done! I can't do this anymore. And I cried, and I was done. I never finished My Girl. I have no idea how it ends.
He comes back to life.
Oh, my God!
Yeah.
It's the Bible? I had
no,
no
it's
idea.
Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Oh,
The prequel
man.
for Walking Dead.
Okay, so you're gonna go with My Girl.
I'll stick with My Girl.
I'm sticking with Good Son, but man, I hate that Home Alone 2 is on the list.
It's probably a
Well, good news. It's not Home Alone 2.
Oh.
Also not The Good Son.
Oh.
Also not Home Alone.
This guy! Yeah!
All
'Cause
right.
He had to die. It's like, cut
Want
him
to take a
check.
guess for how much money he made in Home Alone?
Oh, the first one? Oh, a pittance.
I would say less than 50,000.
This is 1990s.
Oh,
50,000 would have
1990,
bought you.
exactly.
That's like Michael Jackson money back then. I'm going to say
Home Alone came out in 1990.
20 grand.
Oh, you're both lowballing.
Yeah, I'll say over that.
100,000.
Okay.
He made 100,000. The
Not bad
film,
cheddar for a
the
kid.
film grossed 476.7 million.
That's much higher than I would have guessed.
Ooh,
I
man.
would have guessed that it would have been a lot of money. For over 400 million. I mean, you're getting into Marvel movie territory
Yeah.
there.
All right, how old is Macaulay
it's
Culkin
today
today?
money. Macaulay Culkin and I are
He's
about
at
the same
least
age.
15.
You're not
He's
wrong.
40-ish.
I think he's
Yeah.
40. Yeah, I think he's about 40 years old.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Ugh, the time goes by. Yes, Jim's just killing it today. How many questions did I get right today?
One.
Wow.
Killing it.
Yeah, come on. I'm not. That's huge for me. I
He
usually
did
go
100% more than I got.
Anytime
usually
it's
go
not geography,
months.
you have a chance.
Oh yeah, I do. As long as it's multiple choice, I have a chance.
As long as it's not geometry or geology
or psychology,
geography, geology, geometry, psychology,
anatomy, psychology,
parts of the brain.
trivial pursuits,
A lot of the ologies he just
movies,
doesn't do well with.
songs,
Yeah.
sports. I've had a few moments. When there was a couple of months that I crushed.
Listener questions.
Listener question. All right, last question for the day. I'll probably fuck this one up too. Should I have kids if I have a mental illness? This one's short and sweet. Hey
I don't
guys,
know why else you would.
my fiance and I, female, are talking about having kids.
Fiance's female or
I
writer?
get
Writer.
the impression
Writer's female,
writer
I believe.
and fiance are female.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
Or okay, I is female, so we don't know who fiance is. We'll take it from there. So we know that
So writer is female.
writer is female.
Great.
Got
I'm
it.
just trying to get pronouns straight.
Yeah,
that's all I care about.
My
right now.
fiance and I are talking about having kids. As someone who has been in therapy and struggles with OCD, anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder, I understand how hard mental health can be sometimes. I've been dealing with it most of my life, and especially when I was younger and I didn't understand why I felt certain ways. I'm 30 now and still struggle every day, fighting mostly with my anxiety and OCD. I'm finally working with a therapist and psychiatrist on going on some medications because of doing better, but even going on these medications is hard in itself. My question is it selfish to want kids when I know there is a good chance that they might have the same problems? Is mental illness genetic? I know how hard it is, and I don't want that to be their lives, but I do want to have kids. What do you guys think? Thank you, Katrina. P.S. Been following you guys since the March Reddit AMA, and I'm glad I found you. I look forward to your show every week and listen to your old episodes at work. I love your podcast. Please keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks,
Look,
Katrina.
Jim had kids,
Yeah. They're doing okay.
relatively.
Debatable, but
I get a discount on therapy. It's fine.
It's not selfish.
Part of the network, man.
well, actually, here's the thing. It is,
Okay.
oh.
but
How about
wanting
this? It's not negatively selfish.
correct.
There we go.
Wanting to have kids is selfish
Yes.
because there's no other reason to
Right.
have it unless, like, the Spartans need sons. Like there's
Sometimes
no
you got to
reason.
defend Sparta. What are you gonna do?
Just wanting
Oh, yeah.
children.
Katrina.
is-
All right.
We
That's
should
not
say,
the thing.
if you live in Sparta,
Yeah.
then it is not at all selfish.
We got to stop assuming we know where people are at.
That's
I
right.
mean, this is very likely,
Katrina is a Spartan name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Traditionally
Circa
Spartan.
700 Sparta. Yeah. We always forget about the time warp.
yeah.
And Sparta. We rarely talk about Sparta.
Not enough.
Not as much as I'd like.
But no, I don't think it's negatively selfish at all. I think here's the thing. I think again, I guess this kind of piggybacks off the thing that we said with the last writer too, right? Is we wouldn't expect you to put your life on hold. What we would expect is we would expect symptoms to be manageable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good barometer to set maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say necessarily that you need to have 100 perfect days in a row or anything like that. I think you just need to be able to have a system where your bad days are manageable and you feel like you've got support. I think that's the big thing too. Your partner, your fiance in on this, how do they feel about it? And are they going to be there for support to help you out on those bad days? I think this is doable.
Yeah. I think that
There's nothing in the letter that makes me think it's not.
no. So I think so. First off, you're asking some fair questions, okay? And in your lived history, this has been daunting. You don't like it. You went through some hard things.
Mm-hmm.
You're working on it. You're getting better. And now you're looking at it and saying, I'm 30. I'm asking myself if I want to have kids. And I'm asking some very realistic questions because this was very hard for me. And I don't want to watch a child suffer. So I guess I have a couple of pieces of feedback on that. I want to talk about the genetic disposition of mental illness because that's a complex answer. I want to talk about some of the cognitive distortion that might be happening here when we're asking this kind of a question. And then I want to talk about the big picture. So first, genetic dispositions. Yes, many mental health challenges have a genetic link. It's a little bit tricky because this debate about nature or nurture is very much alive and well in psychology. If my children have anxiety, which they may, they'll most likely have inherited that from my behaviors and the way that I interacted with them and the thinking patterns that I demonstrated for them. It's not probably a
'Cause
genetic code link.
Because you've modeled anxiety.
I've modeled it. So a good example in my family tree. I inherit my anxiety, honestly, from my mom. Oh, my goodness. My mom, she can eclipse my anxiety all day long. Ma, you know you can. But my mother gets her anxiety from her stepmother. So they don't have a genetic link at all. She was adopted. And she was adopted by both of her parents, actually. And she inherited her anxiety from them, really, or from her mother, her stepmother. Became her mother. But it wasn't her biological mother. So definitely there's the presence of a genetic link. The studies generally bear that out. Of course, it's not destiny. That's not how that works, And it's not even like a dominant trait like brown hair or eye color. It's just a possibility that could exist somewhere in there. But it's hard for us to disentangle genetics alone because a lot of times there's this behavioral factor too, like anxiety. Now, bipolar disorder is considered to be a lot more suspected of being somewhat more genetic, right? Bipolar disorder, while there are some established, tendencies between trauma and bipolar seems to be a little bit more of a neurochemical situation. So we generally want to think of that as being somewhat genetically influenced. Again, friend, that doesn't mean that your child's going to have a bipolar disorder. It's not a guaranteed thing. These disorders are considered rare among the human species. Even if you do have a predisposition for it, they're still considered rare. They're not very common. So you shouldn't just assume that any offspring you have is going to be guaranteed to have that. That's not the case. It's possible that your entire bloodline down to the 7th generation may never have any of the things that you've experienced. And you know what? You're probably not the first person in your entire bloodline upward who's ever had any problem. And just because some of them have had that does not mean you inherently will have that. Now, that's the first thing that sheds some complex light on this genetic question. The second thing, treatment. There are so many people in this world who live with anxiety and depression. I'm one of them, okay? And I've gotten a lot of help, and I've come to be a decently well-balanced enough guy. Well-balanced, doing a lot of work. But I'm a happy guy.
Jim, I've polled the room.
Yeah. Surveys in. We point up at the big board. That's a big X. So, you know what? I'm a happy enough guy. And yeah, I had anxiety. I have depression. I'm a happy enough guy. I've got lots of patients who have bipolar disorders or even other things, things that you might not have thought of, like schizophrenia and whatnot. These are things that can be managed. These are people that can be happy. They can live fulfilling lives, full lives, and they can go on and do their own thing. And you don't have to be fearful that you're somehow doing them a disservice by creating them and being a mother to them and being kind to them. They're going to probably be fine. And the fact that you know of these things and you're getting help for these things puts you in an advantageous position. If my children start to manifest signs of anxiety, not just my expertise in the subject matter, but my own personal lived experience actually advantages me to assist them in those things and ultimately get them to a place of being better prepared for life and able to manage those symptoms successfully. Okay? They're going to be able to be fine. I've had these problems my whole life. They didn't just suddenly pop in when I started this podcast. I've had these problems as long as I've been alive, and I was able to go to school and do careers and raise children and be okay. And you're doing fine too, friend. And the fact that you're starting treatments and you're starting to get some better solutions, that shows you and will show you these things can be managed. And so I don't want that to discourage you. If your heart is to raise a family, I don't want the fear that you're going to, that mental illness may show up in your kids to be a reason not to have them. Lots of families have kids that are going through hard times. They don't think, gosh, I should have never had this child because that's how horrible this is. They think, no, we're going to adapt, we're going to figure it out. And that's okay. Your normal anxiety is showing up here, and that's the third thing I want to talk about is that cognitive distortion, where we have this all-or-nothing mentality, and we can convince ourselves that it'll either be great or it'll be a catastrophe. That's never the truth, right? Or it's never one way or the other. Life is this messy hodgepodge. It's spilled all over the place. It's working some days. It's not working other days. We laugh. We cry. All of the things happen. And parenting is going to be its own wonderful anxious tornado and one of the most fulfilling things of your entire story. All of that's going to be simultaneously true. But I don't want you to be paralyzed with fear, believing it to only be one thing, as if they did have a mental illness, somehow you're doomed or you've doomed them. That's just not the case. And your experience of living with mental illness is different than a lot of other people's experience of living with mental illness. It is not monolithic. It is not one shade. It is many shades. And you've heard people on this show. You said you're going back into the old episode. Please do. We have episodes with people who have bipolar. We have episodes with people who have schizophrenia. They're guests on our show. We have people with episodes that are going through marital difficulties. We have people that are dealing with depression, people that have literally attempted suicide and survived it. And you know what? They're okay. Did they have mental illness? Yeah. They're members of our community. And you know what? They're doing great. They're thriving. Lots of people in our community are doing great and thriving. And they may have been going through stuff as kids. And you know what? They're going to be okay. We're going to get through it together. So I don't want any of that to color this one way for you, because that's just not accurate. That's a cognitive distortion to begin with.
Are there any red flags? Anything that you see that, like, okay, if you start noticing this should be a concern. This should be something that you should be aware of.
Pre-conception, like we haven't even had a kiddo yet.
Yeah.
And I don't, because the person self-identifies as being diagnosed with anxiety, I don't even want them to be vigilant. There's no genetic test. There's nothing that can happen. Okay. It's not like you're going to go in for an ultrasound. The heartbeat's going to be a little too fast. And be like, oh my God, they have anxiety. There's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can do to prepare for it. And a trick of your anxiety will be fearing that you've somehow ruined your kid. And I don't want you in that headspace. This is not a healthy perception of the situation, okay?
Now, I do know some folks who've been in this experience who were raised by people that had a diagnosed mental health issue.
Sure.
And I've heard them talk about it. Some people listening to this episode right now may be having the same thought. Maybe they grew up in a home where one or both parents had a mental illness.
Sure.
And the challenges that proposes. And there's probably some folks that are yelling at the stereo right now or the radio right now saying, like, what are you guys saying? They shouldn't, because I had this experience and it was terrible and
Maybe.
it was awful, you know? And I do think that does happen, but I also think that that's when it's not managed. When the mental health isn't managed appropriately.
Point. Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, somebody who I can think of right off the top of my head who I used to work with had a parent with dissociative identity disorder.
Sure.
And it was a rough childhood for her, you know, but it also wasn't appropriately managed.
And to be clear, because I didn't catch this until just now, so in case any other listeners were like me and didn't catch where Nick was going with that, Nick was saying it can be hard to grow up with a parent who has unresolved or unmanaged mental illness. That's the reference he's making there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
didn't catch that.
Oh,
no,
okay.
You probably did. I didn't catch it, but I figure if I screwed it up, somebody else may have. So I may as well clarify it.
Yeah. But so again, for me, it all comes back down to manageability. It comes down to finding a system that's going to work for you, that you feel like, you know, and again, like the last writer, you're not always going to have your A game, but if you can make your B, your C, and your D game manageable, I think that's good. That's what we're shooting for.
It is. Right. And you know what? Keep listening to episodes of this show. If there's one message you get from this show, friend, it should be mental health challenges are a comma, not a period. They do not end anybody's story or anybody's sentence. It's a pause in the sentence. Yeah. We work it. We solve it. Our entire profession is dedicated to helping people navigate this.
If you get anything from this show, definitely get that. And the thing about the horses, too.
Yeah. God, get a permit. We have to have laws. We just have to have laws. All right? I want to live in a society, not a
terrible show.
Feces-covered horse
weird
ranch.
runner.
Yeah.
You got to finish with it, I think. You know, it's the only way to do it. We want to thank all
everybody
the folks
who gave us the advice of you need to have running gags didn't realize that this was going to be the runner.
Who gave you that advice?
I don't think anybody.
I think
there's some very solid drops in this episode, including the one where you say universities are subpar healthcare systems. The one where I said something really
similar to how you said it.
Yeah, I said something about
Just
strippers. Oh shit! Drops work both ways.
If you repeat them, it's still
Oh man, that is a huge obvious rule to violate. God, I'm an idiot.
That microphone is on and everything.
You're doing great.
I think I'll sit the next couple of plays out.
We're almost done.
Gotta finish this thing before something bad happens. All right, we don't have any new TheraPals or TheraPods, I think.
No,
weird.
Not as of this.
No, we've got fewer actually. I don't know.
It's weird that they just keep leaving. Okay. If you'd like to hear all this bonus stuff that we do, go to patreon.com/therapy. Lots of material ends up out there. We call them spontaneous side projects, but we'll just publish random deep dives, random interviews. Our archives are actually very rich. And so if you've never been a Patreon, jump in there because we're always putting up stuff. Sometimes it's goofy stuff like the movie night. Sometimes it's really educational stuff. The interviews we did earlier in the year with a mental health influencer about the healthcare financing act that had passed through, about transparency with an expert, the interview with the opioid epidemic, questions from the student. Lots of really interesting things that we put out there, really interesting bonus content. And you get access to a lot more, like our fantasy football league that we're running and like our diet bets and all sorts of fun stuff. So patreon.com/therapy. Get in there for as little as $1. But we also want to thank our producers, the elite, Saccharin now, 16 mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of the fan club. The producers, thank you, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, Kayla Lansbury, Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, King of Student Loan Debt, Dr. Ben Dawn, Crazy Banana Scoop, Mason Miller, Scott Jameson, Carolyn Albert, Leon Kassab, Kevin Chamberlain, my unofficial dentist, Malaya, Richard Mason.
He came for you on Twitter.
Oh, he did come for me. He was pissed.
Yeah. I don't get caught up in much of your Twitter shit.
Yeah.
And I was fine with Kevin tagging me.
I got served. Cease and desist. I had to call Leon in on that one. Thanks, Kevin. Also, I started wearing my my aligners 24 hours a day after I saw his tweets.
Oh,
after he
good.
set me straight and was like, Jim, for the love of
You're
Christ,
wearing
you
them now?
can't do that. No, I took him out for the show. That's only 2 hours. But
I don't think
otherwise,
you know what 24 hours a day means.
There's 26 hours in a day, right?
I mean, Martian hours, I think. Yeah, they didn't
That
say what
can't be
planet.
true.
Kevin Chamberlain, Malaya, Richard Macy, Cindy Ash, and Lord Colin Stewart.
And if you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited
And why wouldn't you?
and enjoy our spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy. And thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time that we got for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, Matt Mattingly's Ice Cream Social Podcast. And thanks to those of you who contributed to the show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pot therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it. By opening this episode's description in your podcast app, copy and paste that link we gave you into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter @PodTherapyGuys, on Instagram @PodTherapyGuys, and of course at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangerman.
I'm DJ Dewey Decimal System.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
24 hours and 37 minutes.
In a
That's
day?
a Martian day.
Oh, it's
Oh.
only 37 on top?
Yeah.
Wow. That's really weird. That's identical.